Hey everyone, and welcome to the live raw food health talks. We're going to talk today about some things around raw foods and health. And really exciting news is Melissa Maris is joining me today. Melissa has been a raw vegan who healed a lot of ailments. She creates ebooks, recipes, books, amazing salads, and I'm really excited that she'll be joining us today. She's actually been a huge inspiration to me. If you know my journey, it was really hard for me to just even read and write. And at the start, I'd write to her stories and Melissa would give me some really amazing advice that sticks with me today. So let me grab her. Drew.
Hello, how are you?
Hello. I'm good. How are you?
I'm excellent,
Welcome.
thank you. This is going to be so great. Thank you for inviting me on.
Oh, I am just so honored. I was just telling everybody when I first started my journey, I was relearning to kind of connect and was learning to like read and write again. And I'd write to your stories, and the advice you would reply with sticks with me today. And it kind of inspired me. So I remember writing to something you shared, and I said, "Thank you, Melissa, for sharing what you share." And you say, "You got to share." And that was like, made me think, well, maybe somebody out there I can help.
Oh,
So I'm really
thank you.
grateful.
Yeah, and when I first started too, like I would reach out to people that I looked up to, but I rarely got a response or help or anything like that. So I decided when I started sharing that I wanted to be as available as I possibly could to help others because I didn't have that in the beginning. So that's why I always say, like, DM me if you have a struggle or a challenge. Like, I'm here to brainstorm with people. So I'm really glad that I could help you.
Yeah, I just know you made a huge impact on my life. So I'm really grateful for that. And so obviously it's stuck with you, and yeah, it can be hard at times to get a reply, and you're just a star in my eyes, and I would love to know how it all started for you. How did this begin
Oh,
for you,
wow.
the raw
Yeah.
foods
So
journey?
it's been a long road. I started in natural health when I was 21. So in 2001, about 20, I can't
Sure.
believe it's been like 22 years ago now. Incredible. But yeah, I started working in natural health in my really early 20s, and I obviously ate everything and anything, and I would try to do really healthy, right? I'd try to eat healthy here and there, but I still ate, the standard stuff as well. Like I tried to eat as balanced as I could. I would do like sometimes I would eat really healthy, what I thought was really healthy for like a week or two, and then I would have other stuff. And I dealt with candida, overgrowth, and gut dysbiosis for 15 years. I also had every single symptom of PCOS. I wasn't diagnosed with it because I was too scared to go to the doctor to get the diagnosis. But I had every single symptom of that. I had severe cystic acne that was incredibly painful. I had brain fog and irritability like every single day. It was just everything annoyed me, and I don't know, I was like in a roller coaster of health and not. And I was in the health industry. Like I was coaching other people on what to do. And I worked in a supplement store. I was the shipping receiving manager there, and I was a nutritional consultant. And I tried to help other people as best I could, but I had been given also the quote unquote diet culture information, but on the natural health side, right? We were still stuck in that whole idea, like lose weight and be healthy and whatever, still eat all the stuff in moderation and everything, right? So I was still stuck in that
Yeah.
mindset. And I would say 2006 was when we started to carry a few raw vegan ebook or print books, right? Like recipe books. We had the Uncooked Raw Giuliano's book, I think, and then Marcus Rothkrantz had his website up, and
Yep.
we also got David Wolf's Sun Food Diet or whatever. And I had read those, so I was kind of introduced to the raw vegan ideas. But I didn't understand the
Sure.
vegan connection. I didn't have the vegan connection until 2014. So I would like, yeah, it took a good like 10 years. Cause, oh no, maybe it was 2004. Yeah, cause it was 10 years that I knew about raw and vegan. And I would do it like, I would do it for a week or two.
Sure.
I think the longest I went raw was about 2 months in those 10 years. And I also I did countless diets because I was in the natural health industry. So, you know, you're bombarded with like the blood type diet and keto and paleo and ancestral, like rice and stuff like that. Like I did the raw animal product vegetable thing back in my mid 20s. I did countless fasts and master cleanses and candida detoxes and herbal cleanse kits because I got so much stuff for free. Like companies would give you free supplements or whatever, and I went through all of that during that time that I was in the natural health industry.
Wow.
So in 2014, well actually in 2011, 2012, I quit the natural health industry and I became a photographer full time. So I was a professional photographer because that was my passion. Yeah. So I had a studio. I had my business since 2008, but I quit the natural health store in I don't know. I can't even remember, like 2011 or 2012, because I couldn't handle both jobs.
Sure.
I was working like till 2, 3 in the morning trying to edit photos for my clients.
Sure.
And then I had to get up and go to work the next day. So I was like overworked, stressed out. I was eating everything and anything. And I was just like, if I only had one job, I would be able to eat healthier, I thought. But after, right? So I decided to let the natural health industry go and focus on my photography full time. So that was my thing. And I thought I was going to eat healthy and I was going to be raw and I was going to do whatever, but that didn't happen because life, you know, like if it's not a habit, you're not going to do it. So I quit my job there and I started working on my photography. And I slowly started gaining more weight. I joined a gym. I did this personal training thing where the personal trainer had me eating like a more, it didn't really have a name to it, but I would say it was more paleo style of like just really low carb, you know, high protein, high fat kind of a deal. Whole foods, obviously. So I had stopped eating the junk food. But I had like hardly any energy. I was only eating like 800 to 1200 calories a day. And then she'd check it off and she'd be like, "You're doing great." I'm like, what? Like looking back now in my journals, I can't believe I did that. But she was checking it off like it was great. I was doing really good. And I had to be sent home from the gym twice during the 1-month challenge that we did because I was just like so tired. I had like hardly any energy. And she's like, "Are you sure you're eating what you say you're writing in your journal?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I am." Like I just wrote down what I ate and she would check it off. So after that, I gained all the way up to almost 200 pounds and I was like stressed out. I was eating the worst that I had ever eaten in my life. And like seriously, like a bag of Doritos for breakfast. I was doing like 2 energy drinks a day plus coffees. I was eating fried chicken from the gas station. Like I was in a deep, I was 34 and just, it was just like super stressed out with not making enough money at the photography thing. And it was just a really hard time in my life. And I decided to go raw one night after I woke up with these heart flutters and I had like severe gut dysbiosis. Like I had a lot of issues going on. But I had these heart flutters and I would wake up in the middle of the night and it would feel like I was having a heart attack. And this was like every second night of the week. Like I dreaded going to sleep because I knew I would wake up at some point and feel these heart flutters. And I knew this kind of stuff. Like I worked in the natural health industry for a decade. Like I knew that my diet wasn't good, but I didn't change. Like, I don't know why I didn't change. I was stuck. So I had these heart flutters consistently over months. And then one day I woke up and I was like, that's it. I have to do something because otherwise I'm going to actually have a heart attack. Like I'm going to die. And I didn't want to.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, the only thing that really resonated with me was raw food and stuff. So I decided I'm going to go back on raw for the millionth time. But this time was
Yeah.
different. The reason why this time was different was because, number one, I never had the vegan connection. Like I knew what vegans were and I knew why vegans ate vegan, but I didn't have that connection for myself. So when that
Yeah.
morning I was like, I was rewatching like Fully Raw Christina and Marcus and some other people that I had been inspired
Yeah.
by in the past. And in one of Fully Raw Christina's videos, somebody shared, which is why it's so important to share, they shared,
This
right? The three
is what
movies that helped them go vegan. And it was Cowspiracy, Earthlings, and Forks Over Knives. So I was like, okay, well, I want to make this
Sure.
change, so I'm going to watch these movies. And after I watched those three documentaries, I was instantly vegan. Like I was not going back. But I didn't do like the
Wow.
whole food, plant-based thing, because I resonated so much with raw. And I honestly assumed that most vegans ate a lot of raw food anyways, right? You'd think. So I defaulted
Sure.
back to raw. So I was vegan for the animals, for the environment, and I was convinced it was going to be great for my health. So I went raw instead of just doing the whole food cooked thing. And yeah, that's basically kind of my story. After the first 4 or 5 months, my acne stopped breaking out in the cysts, my joint pain went away. And then after about a year and a half, that's when I lost about 70 pounds, and my mood improved, my hormones balanced out, like everything just, it was a gradual change. My candida went away all on its own. I didn't have to do any like cleanses or fasts or juice cleansing or anything like that. It just went away because I was building my own microbiome, and my microbiome balanced out the yeast
Yeah.
all by itself. Like all I had to do was provide my body what it needed to actually do what it's supposed to do. And that, yeah, that's basically my story.
I absolutely am inspired by this story. And what has come to me is that I never realized the culture in health foods. So just listening to what you went through, I can't imagine what it would be like to be in an industry where we're saying, is this what happened in one day? You probably get like 3 new diets in front of you. And when you're looking for a diet for yourself, how did you get through that, may I ask? Was it traumatizing? Like, how do you feel about that now? Because a lot of people I see on YouTube are jumping from diet to diet, and I'm very new to all this. So I was like, why are they
Mhm.
doing that? But this
Yeah, the
makes
thing is,
sense.
like, after everything that I've learned, so I've been doing this for like 22 years, right, in the natural health world in some form.
Yeah,
And I've been raw for now over 8 years. And I feel like,
sure.
how can I put this? I feel like the vast majority of the diets, when it works for somebody, is because they're eating something that isn't irritating their microbiome or challenging their microbiome. So when they're eating something or eliminating something out of
Sure.
their diet, suddenly they feel good and they're like, everybody should do this. And I
Yeah,
understand why that is, because when you feel
sure.
good, you want to share with everybody, right? So I can see
Yeah,
why people who eliminate things out of their diet, they're like, you should eliminate it too, right? But it's like, but maybe the reason why you
yeah,
felt better is because you eliminated it, but not because of someone else needing to eliminate it either. For example, I'll use like food combining as a great example, because there's a lot of people out there who say you
sure.
shouldn't combine this or this together, right? Because some
Yes.
enzymes are blah 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 and all this stuff, but there's no scientific proof that food combining actually is what we need to do. The reason why food combining works for certain people
Sure.
is because their gut isn't ready for certain combinations at the moment, or that their body is a little different, and maybe they don't work with pineapple and whatever, right, at the same time. But that's a rule for
Yeah.
them. That doesn't mean it's a rule for everybody. And we have to look at what is scientifically proven to be helpful for the human body. And so far, what I've noticed over the last 22 years is that it's a diet as high raw as possible, with the most variety as
Yep.
possible, and as whole as
Sure.
possible. Those are like the basics behind
Sure.
every single diet that works. Is people are eating whole food, they're eating enough, they're eating a wide variety, and it's mostly plants, if not all plants, and mostly raw. So those are the things that I try to default to when I look at stuff. But again, it was really challenging, like you said, to navigate through all of those different diets and try them out too.
Yeah.
Like, because I tried out all kinds of stuff, and you'd feel good. I felt
Yeah.
I'd feel good, but I wouldn't feel amazing, right? So it's like the body actually produces all the enzymes that you need to digest any combination that you eat. The problem is that people's
Sure.
guts aren't ready for a wider variety, so they have to go slow. But that doesn't mean that it's not good, right? Because people are like, well, if I eat a salad with
No,
a whole bunch of
that's right.
variety in it, I get digestive upset. That doesn't mean that variety is bad. That just means that they need to work on their gut
No.
microbiome and build it up so that they can enjoy more variety and actually digest that variety properly. But it all boils down to the gut microbiome. And that's
Yes.
why I've been so like so focused on the microbiome, because I believe that it is
Yes.
such a huge part as to why certain people feel certain things and certain people can't eat certain things right now, like, but they will be able to if they
Sure.
slowly incorporate it. Instead of eating like 3 cups of broccoli after not having broccoli for a month, of course your body's going to be like, whoa, right? But if you have a small amount
Yeah.
every day or every 2 days or whatever, and just slowly gradually increase it, you're going to build your microbiome. So, but yeah, the challenge is
I think
I mean, that's why I share, because I want to help.
also, but I like what you're saying, because it's also, I think a lot of people have to think of things in like relativity form, because a lot of people are saying that there's a lot of problems with like food combining or raw foods, yet I will speak to people who have healed being bedridden for a long period of time, yet now they're complaining of sinus. Like, so they're complaining highly of sinus as if it's like the world's going to end. Whereas I'm like, you've actually come so far. You obviously got to work on something. And I think that they've got to see that the raw, like where they've come from. So there's a lot to raw foods. And then obviously, as you're saying, the microbiome. Do you want to explain to people what the
Yeah, for
microbiome
sure.
is
So
for
the
those who are listening?
microbiome is the collection or the colony, the ecology of bacteria that live in our guts. And we actually have more bacteria cells in our guts than we are human beings. Like there's more of
That's
them than there
incredible.
is of us. And I have come to realize how incredibly important it is to feed them. And their fuel source is fiber, whole fiber, both soluble and insoluble. And there's things in insoluble fiber, like the pulp that you throw away when you're juicing. There's stuff in that fiber that is only released when it's digested by your gut microbiome. So we should be consuming that, because we're throwing so much away in the pulp, right? We should be consuming that to not only have the fiber to flush through our system and trap toxins and pull them out, but also to feed our microbiome so that they provide certain things for us, like short chain fatty acids. And short chain fatty acids are incredible things that we really need. They're anti-inflammatory. They're an acid. So in the colon specifically where they're created, that acid actually balances out the pathogenic bacteria, because the pathogenic bacteria don't like that acidity of the short chain fatty acid. So the more short chain fatty acids you create, the more balanced your gut microbiome gets, because the other stuff just dies off because it's just not an environment friendly to the pathogenic bacteria. But like, you think of like Lactobacillus acidophilus. It's an acid like it's an acid loving bacteria, and they love the acidic environment of the short chain fatty acids. So they grow and they provide us these short chain fatty acids, like butyrate, for example, is super anti-inflammatory. It's incredible. And also the short chain fatty acids feed our colon cells. They're called colonocytes. And those cells actually help to heal leaky gut. the thing that people avoid fiber from. Like they're like, fiber causes leaky gut, but fiber does not cause leaky gut. Fiber feeds the bacteria that produce short chain fatty acids that feed our colon cells to heal leaky gut. Like it's such an incredible thing, right? So just whole foods, like nature made it best. Like nature made the whole food with the fiber intact. We eat the whole food. It feeds our microbiome. It gives us nourishment and hydration. And we live in a symbiotic relationship with our microbiome.
Yes.
So we really need to take care of them as much as they take care of us. So yeah, it's really amazing. And it's definitely my new passion for sure.
Yes, you can hear that. I love I like because you share a lot on that. May I ask what you're feeding your body at the moment? Or actually, can I actually ask what were you eating
So
when
I first started, it's interesting too, because when I first started raw, I was also like within the raw community, there's a lot of different ways to do raw, right? So it's like, what do I do? But the thing is, I feel, looking back on my journey now, I'm really blessed to have made the choices that I did, because I feel like those really helped me to stay raw and to heal myself with the gut microbiome. But I didn't know that I was doing that back then. I only realized that I did looking back, like hindsight, right? I see what I did. So when I first started, I was eating, I would say around 2,100 to 2,300 calories a day, which is what helped me to lose the 70 pounds. And I was living in Canada at the time. So cold winters, like -30 to -40. And it snowed like 7 months out of the year. 8 months sometimes. And I didn't have access to all the tropical fruits that everyone was eating and all the amazing stuff. It was like bananas, dates, apples, you know, it just really wasn't a lot of variety in terms of fruit. And if I did buy a mango, it was like $5 for one mango. So like a mango was a rare treat. And even when I did get one, they didn't taste as great. Like they definitely don't taste as good as they do here in Vegas or in California. Like some of them are so good here. I'm like, I can't believe I didn't enjoy these before. But again, they were expensive. They didn't taste as good. They weren't as available. And so I actually defaulted to more salads because that's what was available for me. That's what I'm a savory girl. So I like to eat more salads naturally. And I was able to afford it. So I was eating more salads than the average raw vegan was. Most of them were eating mostly fruit or all fruit, and they would actually kind of guilt me. And I would have some people in some of the groups who would tell me that I wasn't doing it right, or that I was slowing down detox because I was eating so many greens. But from my knowledge of natural health, I was like, well, but we need fiber to detox. Like you actually need fiber to trap the toxins and pull them out of your body. Otherwise they just recirculate. So I was like, well, I need fiber. And that's why I'm eating the whole foods. And so I just did 2 salads a day. I had my smoothie in the morning, and I actually eat pretty much the same way as I did when I first started. The only difference is I eat way more variety of foods now. And I've introduced a lot of new things that I never ate as a raw vegan. Like for example, we do sunchokes almost every single day. We grate sunchokes, which is Jerusalem artichoke. It's one of the highest foods in inulin, which is a prebiotic food for the microbiome. So we do that every single day. I've been eating like fennel seeds on my salads every day. And we do fennel bulbs and asparagus. A lot of the foods that a lot of raw vegans are like, no, because it's a vegetable, it's rougher fiber, that kind of thing. Or it might cause them gas. And the reason why it causes them gas is that their gut microbiome isn't used to that amount yet. So there's to start off with a smaller amount and be more consistent with it to grow the microbiome. And I wish that I would have had the opportunity to have my microbiome tested when I first started, so that I could have had like a base level of where my gut was to see how it would grow and change over the years. But they didn't have that available at the time. I only just found out about the gut microbiome. Science is so new. Like 2019, 2020 is kind of when it started to like really gain a little bit more media to it. So in 2020, when I found out about, I read Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bulsiewicz, and that's kind of what changed the course of my raw journey. Like I'm still raw. I'm obviously always going to be vegan, but I want to build my microbiome as a raw vegan. So I was starting to incorporate different things and into my diet. And I did a microbiome test last year with my husband, and we both got 83% overall score for our microbiomes. And now, again, I don't know what my score would have been when I first started. I'm assuming that it would have been really low, like I'm guessing in the 40% area, because I had serious issues like, you know, I didn't get diagnosed with anything. So you're kind of guessing what it could have been. I had IBS symptoms, like I'd have diarrhea one day, constipation the next. I had gas and bloating like crazy, no matter what I ate. Obviously I didn't eat healthy, but it would cause gas and bloating. I was diagnosed systemic candida overgrowth when I was 19. So I dealt with that for 15 years, and no cleanse kit that I did got rid of it. Like it would help a little bit, but it never, like, it didn't go away. Like I'd have bladder infections every 2 months, yeast infections. I got sick, like with a cold or a flu, like every 2 months. I felt like I was constantly dealing with something. But yeah, so we got our microbiome test last year, and then we did a second test in the summer, and we went just in I think it was like 7 months between tests. We went from 83% to, I went to 91%. Nate's at 90%. So just in the last 7 months, we've increased our microbiome score by a good chunk. Like that's a decent chunk. But we're still working. We're actually going to do another test at the end of the month, fresh for 2023, to see where we're at. But it's interesting how people think that it might only take a couple months to change. But I've been doing this for almost 8.5 years. And even just the last year, I have increased my microbiome score. So I can only imagine how much it's been over the years, and how it's important to not give up and to keep working towards building, because there's always going to be some way to improve, right? And some way to change and evolve and grow, that kind of thing, right? To not have like this limit of like, oh, I've reached perfection and that's that, right? Not to have to not learn, right? Like we should be learning and evolving with the science and growing with that, instead of being stuck in dogma, I guess.
Yeah. No, and definitely I agree with all of that. And it's quite incredible, that jump from 84 to 91. Can I ask, when you change foods in your diet, do you feel different? Do you feel better? So there's been 7 month break between the tests. Do you feel better at 91%?
You know, I would say psychologically I do, because I know that I've improved my gut. So now I know in my mind that I'm creating more short chain fatty acids. Like I know what's going on a science level. But as for like, I already feel amazing. So it's like, I didn't really like notice like an extra bonus, but I do know that change in percentage is going to help the future me. Right. So, and that's what I think about. I don't necessarily think like, oh, well, I'm not noticing anything, so why bother? Right. Because I know that the future me is going to be like, I'm so glad I did that. Right. Instead of just assuming how I feel today. And I already feel, like I said, I feel amazing. One of the biggest changes that I did notice, however, was swapping out our Vitamix jug for a vacuum blending jug. And that lowered the amount of gas that we, like extra gas that we had, because when you're blending a smoothie or a sauce or a dressing in a regular blender, you're blending air into the sauce or smoothie. So when you consume it, we don't see it necessarily. Like, yeah, there's bubbles and stuff, but it's actually in the actual dressing or smoothie.
Sauce. Probably expands it a
Exactly.
bit,
That's
has
why the
it? And then
smoothie
that's
kind of
why it's
grows when you
thicker.
blend it, because you're blending
Yeah.
air into it. And then when you drink it,
It's
where do you think the air is going to go? Right? It's going to go somewhere. So,
right.
you know, there's a little extra gas, and that's, it's not a bad thing. Like, we do have gas, that's natural part. It actually tells you that your gut microbiome is doing stuff, right? It's when you have excessive
Sure.
gas,
Yeah, yeah,
when it's
yeah.
excessive and it's painful, that just means that you overburdened your microbiome with too much fiber at one time. So it's not a bad thing, it's just a signal that you've overburdened your microbiome. But if you're doing like swapping out to the vacuum blender, both Nate and I noticed that our gas level went down. Not that it was like a crazy amount, but we did
Amazing.
notice, yeah,
No.
because we were no longer consuming all this extra. Like, we drink smoothies, we do raw soups, and we use our blender like 4 or 5 times a day. So lowering the amount of air that we're consuming really helped with that. And we're just like, wow, this is pretty cool. So that was one thing that I did actually notice a difference, slight difference when we swapped. Yeah.
Sure. Well, that's a good tip. I love as you go along, like you feel amazing, but when you add, you find new things, like I guess increasing your microbiome and then adding the vacuum blender, that you can feel even better. And
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
there's a couple of questions. So so someone said raw food romance. You've been on this journey for a while before it became a trend or a fad. Who are some people that you looked up
That's a
to when you
great
started on your
question.
journey?
I would say the top one who had the most influence on me was Fully Raw Christina. And I had always defaulted to her content, but I never did the low fat thing. Like, in those 10 years that I was trying to do raw, I was always doing the David Wolf version, high fat. And I was stuck in diet culture where I had to like not eat enough and, exercise too
Yeah.
much and eat fat to lose fat. Like, I was stuck in that mindset. So every time I would try raw, I would always be eating too
Mm.
high fat and not nearly enough vegetables and fruit. Not nearly enough. I'd have smaller salads, I'd be
Yeah.
calorie restricting, blah, blah, blah. And I wouldn't be able to sustain it. So I'd fall off and I'd go back to eating whatever. And so when I went raw in 2014, I watched a video from Fully Raw Christina where she was explaining why she ate a low fat diet. And I was like, I was so indoctrinated that we need all these fats, like fish oil and coconut oil is amazing,
Yeah.
and you need to eat more fats and everything. So I was indoctrinated to believe that we needed all these fats. So when I watched her video, I was kind of like,
Sure.
that belief system was challenged hardcore. But I was like, if all
Yeah.
the hundreds of times that I tried raw didn't work, maybe I should give low fat a try and see. I'm like, obviously she's still alive, so it's not going to hurt me to do it for like a little bit of time. But that was the ticket for me. And I believe for so many people,
Yeah.
because our body naturally does not need that much fat. We need the carbohydrates, the whole food form of carbohydrates. And so I went low fat, not no fat, because we still need fats, but I was focusing more on the chia and the
Yeah.
flax, and I would have a small amount of fats with my dinner salad. And I was able to eat like a huge amount. I really realized that you need to eat a lot of food when you're raw. You have to eat enough.
Yes.
And I know people will say like, well, I feel full, but it's like, but you've only had 300 calories. Like, you need to eat more food to get enough calories. Otherwise, you're going to struggle. And that's probably the number one thing I see people struggle with, is not eating enough food when they're on a raw diet. So
Yeah.
I lowered my fat, and I was like, well, if I'm lowering my fat, I have to increase everything else. So I was eating massive salads, and that is what
Yes.
really helped. Other people that I was inspired by would be Marcus Rothkrantz. He would, like, in the beginning though, like, I don't necessarily follow their stuff now, but in the beginning they were
Yes.
inspirational for me. There was a family called the Raw family. They're not online anymore, that inspired me. And yeah, some other,
Sure.
David Wolf at the time, like, again, I don't follow his stuff now, but at the time that was part of my journey and what inspired me to even consider going raw. So yeah.
Yeah. So I also find it quite incredible when I talk to people is people who seem to thrive on this diet don't follow somebody else strictly. They take bits and pieces that resonate with them.
Mhm.
And I think that is so key to anybody. Like if something anybody does doesn't resonate or you don't feel right when you've eaten that way, there's so many people out there.
Mhm.
There's listening to your body. So I think that's yeah, a great way to go is by taking bits and pieces from other people, but always make it your own. Because I mean, every person I speak to that's raw vegan, they're raw
Mhm.
vegan, but they eat
Yep,
so
exactly.
differently,
And also learning
which is
to move with the science too, and not to get stuck in dogma, because we are
yeah,
learning so much about the microbiome now, and I do see a lot of people who are still stuck in maybe the old school ideas, and it's not like those ideas were bad at all. They only knew what they knew back then, right? That they were just trying to
that's
come up
right.
with theories as to why or what we should eat. But as we move with science, it's actually really beneficial for us to move with the science and change how we view things. That's good. Like we should be changing, right? And
It
accepting
is
new
good.
forms of science without
It is,
having to like be so headstrong, like I can't change, right? We really should be changing because you don't
yeah.
know like the amazing stuff that you can experience when you do follow that and you expand on that a little bit more.
That's right. How do you actually navigate the science? Because of course there's science out there that's just saying to eat eggs, etc. So
Well,
how do you navigate
yeah, it's
science
challenging
as
for
a raw
sure.
vegan?
I really, really, really look
Yeah.
up to Dr. Rick and Karen Dina, who run Raw Food Education,
Yeah.
and Nate and I are
Yes.
actually part of their school this year. I just took the level 1 test or whatever, like the first quarter test. So yeah, we're in school. We're actually
Yes.
learning from them. And again, like you said, there may be little pieces that we question or that don't make sense or what have you to our own belief system. So we do like expand on that and we go and research ourselves and try to figure out what makes the most sense. Taking into account also the psychological effects of certain things, right? Because like something might really work for some person, but psychologically it doesn't work for another. And I use the, like juicing as a great example because like
Yeah.
if somebody is trying to be pure and perfect or whatever, the mental health stress that comes from trying to like cleanse their body or be perfect can be really
Yeah.
detrimental. And mental health is so important. Like I feel like our relationship with
Oh, of
food is
course.
more important than the food we eat. And I know that can like irritate some people because they're like, but the food is
Yeah.
important. And I'm like, yes, the food is important, but our mental health is even more important. So if the food is important, can you imagine how
Mhm.
important our mental health is? And to not have the stress about being
Yeah.
perfect according to someone on the internet, like it's really important to figure that out. But like
Mhm.
navigating the science, it's definitely challenging. Rick and Karen Dina are great. I follow the gastroenterologists who do this for a living. Like they're not just theorizing whatever based on observation. They're actually doing the science. And I also look at who is funding the science as well. Who is funding
Right.
who is funding these
That's
studies
good.
and what's the agenda behind that? And also my ethics come into play as well. For me personally, if there's a
Mm.
study that shows eggs is good, I'm not going to like I might read it and see, but it's normally funded by the egg industry. But also my ethics come into play, and I'm like, well, I wouldn't eat eggs anyways, so it's not even it doesn't even apply to
That
me
doesn't apply.
because I know that there are plenty of ways to thrive on a vegan diet. And the problem is like people might crave these foods, these animal products, because they're just not eating enough. They're not eating enough variety. Like choline is one of those ones that it can be
Yeah.
challenging to get enough on a raw diet if you're not eating enough variety and not enough vegetables and
Mm.
greens and whole foods that way. They're lacking in the choline. So over time, over years, like they may feel amazing and they're like online sharing about how amazing they feel. And then over a year or 2 or 3 or 4, they've become so depleted that now they start thinking about other
Yeah.
foods because they've gone so long right? But they've been so headstrong for so long that they can't go back on their word. So they sit there suffering in silence. It's really heartbreaking because I hear a lot of the stories behind the scenes in my DMs from people who followed really restrictive
Sure.
protocols and who are now damaged from it. But they don't share it because they're going to be told they didn't do it right, or they didn't cleanse deep enough, or they have to go deeper, or they whatever, right? So it's their fault that they didn't do it, but the protocol itself may be flawed and it's not their fault, right? And it's hard for them to talk about it because they don't want to be gaslit or told that they're not good enough, because no one wants to be told that they're not good enough, right? Or that they did something wrong, even though they were trying to follow someone who was saying it was right. It's really hard. But yeah, I do hear a lot of these stories of people, and that's why I've come to my conclusion that it's more about whole foods and supporting the body through these processes instead of forcing it into something.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you about on the eating part of this. It's one of those things people have to be aware as well. This type of food goes through you quite quickly. So when people say, you know, I feel full, well, if you've eaten a salad and you can feel the salad, you know, it's more of a mental game, right? So people are used to eating a certain sized meal, and they come into this thinking their brain is trained to eat a certain size, so they think they're full, but you won't be full in as little as 15 minutes. Then you're walking through coffee shops and, you know, food courts, and your friends are eating something, and that's where, if you are satiated and full, and I can't stress enough how, for me, and I assume for you as well, is things like fats, greens, vegetables, they seem to satiate me more. I'm more of a savory person as well than fruits. As much as I love the sweetness of fruits, I love my fruits as well, but within half an hour, no matter, I could eat 10 mangoes, within half an hour my stomach will start to go flat again. And I'd feel, if I was just having fruit, I'd be chasing my tail all the time, or I'd be carrying around, I'd have a sore back from all the fruit.
Yeah, I'm glad you
I
said that,
really,
because I feel too that fruit is placed on this invincible pedestal of like perfection. Like it's the most amazing thing. And I love fruit too. Like I feel fruit is amazing, and I'm not knocking fruit whatsoever. I think it's wonderful. But I think that vegetables and greens need to be on a pedestal right beside fruit. They need to be equals, and need to be treated as equals, because they provide so many things that fruit may be like challenged with, right? Like fruit is really great for added hydration because it's so juicy and so hydrating. There's tons of vitamins in there. There is a little bit of fiber, insoluble fiber and soluble fiber in there. They're really good, and they provide the calories that we need so that we can run our day for the most part, right? But vegetables are amazing too, because they're higher in mineral content, they're higher in protein content. They have the roughage that helps to trap the toxins and pull them out of our body. They also provide a lot of things that our detox pathways need, like phase 2 detox, for example. There's different pathways that the liver uses for detox, but one of those pathways that's used fairly often uses something called glutathione, and we make glutathione from stuff from cruciferous vegetables. Like, in order to support our detox pathways, we should be eating more greens so that the detox pathways function properly and efficiently, and then the fiber traps the toxins. Like, it's a beautiful synergistic orchestra that we have, but we have to value greens as much as we value fruit. So that's why I pump salads so much, because there's enough accounts on there promoting fruit. Fruit is amazing. We all know that, right? But it's like, what about the forgotten stuff? Like greens and bitters, and like stimulate the liver with the bitters. Like, there's so much more to raw food than just fruit.
There is. And I also think there's something too, if people are looking at fruits, and I feel like when I look at a picture of a fruit, I'll be like, oh, yum. But when I look at a picture of a salad, I feel so many things. Like, I feel like that would just fill me up. It makes me feel, I guess salads make me feel amazing. I've always been a savory person. And I think most people always comment on my salads, and I assume on yours as well, in a way that they just want it. They know that that's a meal. They're going to feel great afterwards. And I think we have to respect that if your brain's telling you this, try it. Like, I think it's something we all should have in our lives. And I wanted to ask, I don't know if you've ever thought about this or even looked at it, but do you believe, because I know that there's the idea that we all come from being fruitarian and primarily we're supposed to eat fruits, but do you believe we've evolved into a world in this day and age where it's the reason we need salads is because of the environment, the places we live, soil depletion? Or do you have a belief, or have you read somewhere that we were always eating, a combination of high, vegetables and
That's a really
greens
good
with the
question.
fruits?
I love that question because I feel that we are the most unique species on this planet, and that we should not be comparing ourselves to even our closest ancestors, because we are unique and we are different. So yes, we may share very similar things to our closest relatives, but we are also extremely unique, and we have to work with our uniqueness instead of trying to morph into what we think we should be, right? So yes, we should be eating a lot of fruit for our calories and our energy, but we also have a very different microbiome, and each one of us has a different microbiome. Like, our microbiomes are as different as our fingerprints. No two people on the planet have the same microbiome. They're all different. Depends on what you touch, what you eat, how you grew up, your stress levels, your exercise levels, your sleep levels. Like, everything affects our microbiome. So we have to understand that because we are unique, we shouldn't be trying to force ourselves into some form of theory that we should be or that we need to be. And I like that you said, like, in our modern age, a lot of people are trying to force themselves into like appeal to ancestry or appeal to nature. Like, we should be eating this way because nature is this way. But they're forgetting that we don't live like that. We live in cities. This is modern life. We live in an imperfect world, and this is how it is. So we have to work with where we're at, and we have to work to build from the platform that we're on, instead of going backwards and potentially coming into issues because we're not working with our bodies and with our microbiome. So I do agree that we have evolved over time, but I also think that we ate a wide variety of food in the day, because the appeal to ancestry and the appeal to nature theories state that we should be eating the way our ancestors ate. But our ancestors ate for survival, like basis, right? They ate what was around because they had to live and survive. So what they did wasn't necessarily optimal or ideal for the human body. They were just doing what they had around, and they were just eating whatever was there. It just so happened that the ancestors who ate predominantly plant-based lived longer, right? So when we look back on the past, we're just learning from what they did to survive and who survived the longest, right? But that doesn't mean that that's what we should be eating exactly, right? So we can use what we learned from our past and build on what we know now. And we should be moving forward, not backwards. So that's what I have to say on that. I think that we are definitely frugivorous style of animal, but it should not be just all fruit, because we also have to work on our microbiome and the variety of plants. So when someone says like frugivore, I think 60 to 70% total calories coming from fruit, which is technically what Nate and I do. The vast majority of our calories are coming from fruit, the dates in our dressings, tomatoes and cucumbers and bell peppers and zucchini. Those are all considered fruits, and we eat a lot of those as well. But we also eat a lot of greens, and greens are so lower calorie, so you can eat a huge amount and not even compare. Like, one mango is like eating 2 heads of romaine lettuce. And we're talking big heads of romaine lettuce, right? So when someone sees us eating a huge amount of greens, calorie-wise, it's a very small percentage of our total calories. So technically, if you really want to get technical, we eat a fruitarian style diet, but we eat so many greens because we want to get that extra fiber, we want to get that variety, we want to get the added nutrition and the minerals and the extra protein and all the things that tend to be lacking on someone who's eating predominantly all fruit. So yeah, that is a long answer to your question.
No, that's absolutely incredible, because I think that that's the reality of it, right? Is we need to think that in this day and age, we aren't living amongst trees and by a river. We're actually living in homes. We're driving around in cars. There's fumes. There's, electromagnetic fields.
Yep, exactly.
All of this affects our microbiome. Us and our microbiome. So that is why we're eating differently. Well, each person eats differently, let alone how we look back at as well. I guess our ancestors were in survival mode. So they were looking to live. So if there's no food at all around, they would be, they'd have to resort to
and
alternate methods.
And a lot of, from what I've seen in some stuff that I've read in the past, that some of the stools that they found from our ancestors had twigs and bark from trees. They ate anything. They didn't really eat like we eat today. And I don't think that some people really realize that. They ate whatever. They would snack on sticks and stuff, because if there was no food around, they would eat anything to survive. And that's, I feel, why a lot of people defaulted to animal products, because it was easy in so many terms, right? They had to actually kill the animal, but it was easy to get a dense amount of calories in smaller portions so that they could survive through winters and stuff like that. But nowadays we don't need that. We've got a huge amount of options.
That's true.
The majority of us have a huge amount of options, and we can use plants. Preferably whole, obviously. But yeah, it's interesting, the whole idea that we need to go back to the way we lived in the past, when it's how about we take what we learned and move forward with it, right? Let's move forward.
That's a good way to look at it, because the world is moving forward. So we want to be moving forward with it. And I think that's why as well, when I think of this diet, is I find it inspiring. I know people think, oh, it'd be utopia to live, by a tropical beach and just be, more isolated from society. But I find it inspiring when people are raw vegan in society today, because it can be challenging, but I see those people as thriving even higher, because your salads although they're yours, would take inspiration from what is trending as well. And that appeals to people who, you can share with the world, is what I'm kind of saying, is by staying, relevant and current, is keeping it modern. And I think that's what we need to do in this day and age. So thank you for doing that.
My whole goal with Raw Food Romance isn't to make raw vegans more raw vegan or more pure or whatever. My goal is to inspire the 99% of the rest of the world to just eat more raw food. Whether they go all raw or not is it's their issue. But I want to inspire people to eat more raw food, eat bigger salads. And even if you have a sweet potato in your salad, whatever, at least you're eating a big salad. And I think that it comes down to the mental health aspect, right? Somebody's saying, well, I can't be all raw, so I'm not going to try. But we all know that we should be eating more fresh food, right? What's the harm in trying? You're already doing so much better than you were doing yesterday, right? Instead of forcing yourself to be in this box of perfection, right? Start adding more raw food, and the more you feel better and the more you enjoy it, the more raw you eat, and eventually, who knows, maybe one day you'll be all raw. But that's not it's not a prerequisite to have a healthy life, right? You can't. There's so many people who heal from cancer and all kinds of stuff with cooked foods as well, right? There are stories like that, and not to be discounted, because those stories exist. And the whole goal is, again, more raw. Do the smoothies, eat more fruit, lower the fat percentage, obviously, so your body can use the sugars properly. But lower the fat, add more raw, and just work with your microbiome instead of jumping right in right away. I have a video coming in January called Why I Don't Think Everyone Should Eat Like Me Right Away. because again, our microbiomes are so different, and what one person can do, jump right into raw because they already have a high fiber diet, may be easier for that person than a person
Yes.
who's coming from animal products and very low fiber diet, or maybe they did a water fast and they've had no fiber for a month or something, and then they start eating a high amount of fiber and their gut is
Sure.
just wrecked because there's way
Yeah.
too much fiber coming in all at once, and the gut just is like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, slow down, right? So it really depends on
Yeah.
the state of your microbiome and your past, like what you've done, what kind of diets you've done, how long have you been restricting. Like there's so many factors that come into play, but people want like a magic bullet. Like just go raw and you're never going to get sick. It's like, but there's so much more than
Yes.
that.
Yes. That's the society we're coming from, right? Is we've been conditioned since we're little to be, eat this and you feel this, or take this and you feel this, and all of a sudden you've got to let that go, as well as start having the raw foods or plant-based foods. But I like what you said about the enjoyment, because and just eating raw foods, because I've noticed around me, my little nieces, they'll eat raw around me, and I don't want them to go raw. I
Yeah.
love them to be raw, but I mean, I am just so loving that they are having more raw and they enjoy it. So that is in their memory, and they know that I got well from raw, and that instilled on them is enough for me. They can do what they want to do. My family, my friends, one of my best friends has gone raw, but it takes time, and I think the enjoyment that comes with it is what will keep you on track. Like if you did it and you were uncomfortable, you're better off having some sweet potatoes, having some plant-based foods as you transition, and enjoy it. Like I enjoyed it so much that, and it worked for me, and everybody's different, but there's definitely, with mental health and enjoyment, is why I
Yeah.
still do it. And
Same
I
here.
love
Same
that
here.
side
That's
of
like
it.
people are always like, "How do you stay raw?" I'm like, I love it. Like I don't have to try to stay
Yes,
raw. I just choose raw because
that's
that's
right.
what I want to eat. Like I don't force myself to be raw. It's just easy for me. Also because I've built the habit, so it's my new reality. When I look when
Yeah.
I'm hungry or if I feel I need fuel, I default to raw food because that's just what I've been doing for 8.5 years. Like it's just normal. It's like, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I'm going to eat. But also, I wanted to touch on the absolute statement that people like to tend to have, where it's like you have to be 100% all raw, otherwise you're not going to get the healing, and you're
Yeah.
not going to do this, or you're not doing it right, or whatever. Anytime I ever see an absolute statement like never get sick again, or do this and you'll be healed, or heal everything with this, or whatever, I seriously have walls put up, and I'm like, question their motives and what are they trying to convince someone of when they're using an absolute statement, because absolute statements are dangerous. They set people up for unmet expectations, and then like you said, like if it doesn't work for somebody, they give it up completely, instead of realizing that there's like there's a space for a lot of raw food in someone's life, and when they can't reach that 100%, they go back to eating whatever and anything, because they're just like, well, if I can't do it, then they just stop, which is really sad, because it's like it's really important to include. Yeah.
That's right. It really is. I think also when I say to people, when you first start, it's great to have some default foods with you if this is what you want to do. I mean, if you do need to go back and have the sweet potatoes or whatever, that's all fine too. But I found one of the greatest things was having like some dates or some blueberries or just something with me all the time at the start, because your brain is so used to eating what's been, shoved in front of it, and there's smells around you. So yeah, there's a little tip from me about when you first go raw. I saw somebody just write a question about do we both use
For sure, yeah.
dehydrators? Do you want to
Nate and
answer
I
that?
use a dehydrator for sure. We don't use it every day, but we do use it mostly just to marinate vegetables in. We don't eat a whole ton of
Yeah.
like fully dried foods. We have recently bought a freeze dryer, so we've been, oh my gosh,
I
that like
saw
the stuff
that.
that comes out of the freeze dryer is just like pure flavor. It's incredible. Yeah,
Really?
like because freeze drying is different than dehydrating. Dehydrating, you are taking away around 95% of the moisture, so there's still a little bit of moisture left. dehydrated food only lasts about 1 to 4 years on average if stored properly. And when you dehydrate food, you actually lose about 40% of the nutrition. But I mean, with any form of processing, even after you pick a fruit, you start to lose nutrition, right? So it's not a big deal. Like, I don't want people to be like, oh, I'm never going to dehydrate again because you lose nutrition, right? You lose nutrition in cooking, you lose nutrition in oxidation just by being exposed to air, right? So, but dehydration loses around 40% of its nutrition, whereas freeze drying only loses 3%. It retains 97% of its nutrition. So freeze drying, what happens in the freeze dryer is it's a 3-stage process. The first stage, it's frozen at temperatures below 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So between 30 and 50 below Fahrenheit. Very, very cold, colder than any freezer. And it freezes it to the point that when it starts to warm it up, it goes through phase 2, which is sublimation, where when it warms it slightly, then the frozen water goes from solid to gas. It skips the liquid step. So it goes from solid to gas, and then the third step is the vacuum. Like, it vacuums the vapors out of the dehydrator or the freeze dryer. So that's how so it's basically dehydrating it in a frozen state, which is like such a mind-boggling thing. But freeze drying's been around since the very early 1900s, like 1906, and it was popularized in World War II when they were freeze drying medicines for the army, so that if there was no freezer or what have you, they were able to preserve it further. And someone's asking, 30 Fahrenheit is 0 Celsius. I said minus 30 Fahrenheit, minus 30 to minus 50 Fahrenheit. So it's much lower than 0 Celsius.
Does it freeze that very quickly? Is it like flash frozen almost? Is it just cold coming very quickly? Or
when you use the freeze dryer, like, they recommend freezing the trays and whatever you're going to freeze dry in the freezer first, so it's already frozen when you put it into the machine. It just saves energy. It's the freeze dryer from having to work extra to freeze it from room temperature. So we will prepare our trays of whatever we want to freeze dry, and we just have them sitting in our freezer until we actually run the freeze dryer, and we'll just put them in there frozen, and then it takes it from like freezer frozen to minus 30 to minus 50 in a very short time, and then it starts that process of drying, which can take anywhere from 25 to 40 hours. But once fully dry, if preserved properly under vacuum with an oxygen absorber, that food can last 25 years. And it retains 97% of its nutrition. It's phenomenal. It's really cool. It's a great way to preserve food. And Nate and I, because we live in Vegas, we're only 4 hours from LA. So we sometimes go with John Kohler. We go down. Yeah, it's so fun. We went to a party with him last night. It was really cool. Like, we've become really good friends with him. He's coming over for Christmas Eve with our friend Jennifer. He's become a really good friend of ours. And we'll go to LA with him, and we come back with a truck packed with food, like cases of bell peppers, and I got like 35 pounds of sunchokes that we chopped. We freeze dried like 2 big trays. I froze some, because I do like to have just frozen and thawed as well as the freeze dried. So like different kinds of foods, and it's a great way to preserve the food. So for food storage in general, like when food's really expensive, or for example, in the summertime, if you go blueberry picking and you get like buckets and buckets of blueberries, like, it's impossible to eat them all before they go bad. So freezing some and freeze drying some, dehydrating some to make dehydrated blueberries. Like, there's different ways of preservation. It really depends on what your goal is with that food in the future. But yeah, so we do long answer to your question. But yes, we do use a dehydrator and we use a freeze dryer now. But again, like, we try not to eat a huge amount of dried foods. We do drink 2 to 3 liters of water a day, and we will drink more water if we're eating dried foods. So, but we believe
Yes.
water is another thing that people tend to forget about, because they're like, well, I eat raw food, so I don't need to drink water because all my water's in my food. But it's like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't, as many times as I've done raw over the last 8 years, like consistently every single day, the days that I drink 3 liters or more, I feel better. It's just, not that I don't feel good when I don't, but I feel that like
Well,
step above, and
no.
you're like, yep, got to drink the water. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was noticing I was avoiding water, and it was
Mm-hmm.
because I was still drinking tap water.
Yeah.
As soon as I changed that to spring water, so even filtered water for me, I like to feel like that vibe I get from the raw foods. I feel really uplifted. And so when I had spring water, and it's not that expensive, I think it's like $1.50 a day for what I end up getting, and I feel amazing. Like it really resonates with me. I love it, but I feel that heaviness of the water, even like because I haven't got filtered tap water that goes through the shower. I feel that heaviness in the water, and I healed a lot more from having, as soon as I started having this spring
Yeah.
water as well. So there's obviously something in the tap
Yeah.
water
I don't think it
that didn't
agrees
agree
with many
much with
people.
me. No, but I didn't realize how bad it was kind of. And obviously, it got to the point where I was telling myself I didn't need
Mm-hmm.
water, but it was really I was
Yeah.
avoiding the tap water. So I was going to also say that I dehydrate as well, and the reason I love it, and I don't
Mm-hmm.
do it that often either, but I love the texture, the flavor, the change. It's really like me. It's just me. I don't store a lot of food. I just every now and then I'll have it, but it's not something where I'm like, mindful of that's going to give me like a better running day or a better, better at dancing or something. I will feel thirsty afterwards, so I do drink more water on those days, but
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
do
We,
enjoy
we,
it
we
as well.
really love to,
It,
like I said, marinate vegetables. And then we'll use those marinated vegetables
yeah,
in a salad. So there's a lot of fresh food as well. Or like on cucumber noodles. So it's really extra
yes,
hydrating. And we only dehydrate most of stuff for like 2 hours, just to concentrate the flavors a
sure,
little bit and soften the foods. Or like we'll
yes,
do a lot of frozen foods thawed in the dehydrator. Like we do frozen from fresh peas that we freeze ourselves so they're not blanched or pasteurized or anything. So we buy fresh
sure,
peas that we freeze ourselves because when they're thawed, they've got that texture like they steamed, right?
yes,
Cauliflower is a really big one that we like to do. We'll just like in the summertime at this one Mexican grocery store, they had 5 heads of cauliflower for $5. I was like,
oh
what? So we
wow,
bought a lot. We just chop it up and freeze it, and then we've got cauliflower for days, right? Like we can make the. So yeah, we like to marinate it in a
yeah,
sauce in the dehydrator, so it softens, it gets more flavor, and then we add
yes,
it to our salads or wraps or whatever soups,
yes,
stews, and curries, and yeah.
yes. But it's really good. I think it's really fun to play around with textures and flavors and things. Oh, so I'll go to
Sure.
there's a few more questions here. I'll grab a couple. Um, there's Are there any books that speak on
Mm-hmm.
the gut microbiome that you can speak on? Or like
Yeah,
I guess
so right
recommend, I guess what they're
now,
saying.
I'm always looking for more because I'm seriously obsessed with the microbiome. But the one that started me on the whole journey that changed my perspective on things was Fiber Fueled by Dr. Will Bolsewicz. And he's vegan, but he also eats cooked food, obviously. So he has a second book called the Fiber Fueled Cookbook, which actually isn't just a cookbook. There's like informational chapters in there. So it's a really cool combination book.
Sure.
So if you just wanted to get it just for the information, that book goes more in detail with things like histamine intolerance, food intolerance, that kind of thing. Like he dives a little deeper into that. So both
Interesting.
fiber fueled books are amazing. And I also listened to an audiobook called Microbiome Thyroid by Raphael Kellman. And that book was really good as
Mhm.
well, teaching a little bit more about the connection with the microbiome and our thyroid gland. And how, because our thyroid is like one of the master
Interesting.
glands, right? So it controls like metabolism and all kinds of stuff. Like it takes over the estrogen after the ovaries stop over menopause. Like it does a lot of stuff for us.
Yes.
and it's connected to the microbiome. And so this book was really diving deep into the thyroid and how it's connected. So that's a really good one. But those are the two top books that I've read, Fiber Fueled and Microbiome Thyroid, for the microbiome. But I love following Dr. Will, and I follow another Dr. Vanessa Mendez. She's plant-based gut doc.
Yep.
She's really cool. And I've done interviews with both of them on my YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to check them out, you can DM me and I'll send you the link to watch those. But those are some of the ones right now. I'm sure in the future I'm going to have more books that I collect. I actually joined Dr. Will's 21-day microbiome challenge that starts January 1st. And I joined so that I can get more information. Like, I want to learn more from him and see what he has to say. Obviously, I'm not going to eat the cooked food, but I want to learn more about, he's going to talk about like the circadian rhythm and how that affects the microbiome. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool things that he's going to talk about in January. So it was only $37 and I'm like, this is going to be great. I'll just listen to a video from him every day and learn more, because that's the whole point, right? I don't want to ever stop learning. I don't want to get stuck in a dogma and just be like that for the rest of my life. I really want to expand and learn more about that.
It just sounds, the more you talk, it just sounds so, and I already knew that, but it sounds so much like you've just found your passion, and it not just that, it's just drawn you into this whole world, which you are just so knowledgeable on. And I'm
my
so grateful to
pleasure.
share
And
it
yeah,
all.
this is definitely my passion. Like, I could talk for hours and hours, and I do on this topic. And like, another thing too, that I don't think people realize is how much time it takes to do what I do. Like, I spend hours every day in the DM helping people for free. Like, they'll ask questions and I'll send voice messages, and I try to help and I coach, like, just for free on social media, on YouTube. I try to answer everyone's question as best I can. But in order to do that, I have to sell my eBooks so that I can pay rent and buy food, right? Like, so there is a lot of work that goes into even editing videos. Like the LA video that I did with John, that video took 15 hours to edit. So it's like trying to find like an hour every day or whatever to try and like get through editing a video can be a lot of, like, it's a lot of work on top of everything else that we do, and on top of having a life, right? And like actually dating my husband and, you know, like all the little things, going shopping, like there's so many things and there's a lot of stuff to do. So I do appreciate every single person who's ever purchased anything from me, because that allows me to be able to be live with you here and to share all this information and to help people as much as I can, because that's I'm grateful that I'm able to do that.
Yeah, and also when you do create these things, and people do buy them, I also think that there's a value in buying something, because it helps you commit. If I purchase something, I'm committing myself to that, and there's a higher chance that I will go through with it. So I also think there's a value in, if you want something or follow something, you go further with it, buy it, and that way, yeah, you're committing yourself to it, which I
agree
think is really
totally.
important.
I know there is definitely that commitment that comes with actually investing something yourself. You're investing.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. So I'll get one more question. Let me see here. It was just, and I think it's important. So somebody said here, how were you raw but not vegan? I think what they're referring to is the part at the start when you were trying to go raw, but you needed that to understand veganism to actually
because there
commit to
is
it.
a way to do raw food without being vegan. For example, when I would do raw, because I really resonated with the raw food idea, right? Whole and uncooked. So in those periods of time, I also ate raw animal products. Like, I ate raw eggs, I ate raw dairy, and I ate raw fish, and like beef tartare or whatever it is, like the raw filet mignon kind of style, without cooking it.
Yep.
I did do that, not to a huge amount, but I ate the raw animal products because, you know, like I listened to people from like Weston A. Price, where they'd eat traditional animal product foods or yogurts and stuff like that. Like, I did eat the animal products in their raw form because I was more drawn to the raw part of it in those days. But once I became vegan, I also did honey as well, raw unpasteurized honey. But once I became vegan, once I understood and got that internal connection, I finally could align, because I never enjoyed the raw animal products. It was gross. Like, but I ate them because people told me I had to.
Yeah.
I needed the protein. I needed this from it or whatever, right? But I didn't resonate with it. I just did it because I thought that's what I had to do. But when I got that vegan connection, everything was so much easier, because I was like, well, now I can be raw. I don't have to eat the animal products. I just have to eat an abundance of raw foods. And then I got the best of both worlds, right? Like, I got to eat the raw food and I got to be vegan. I was like, this is great. So,
You found you call. Oh gosh, thank you so much for today. I feel like I've learned so much. I hope everyone listening has learned lots. You're just incredible. You really are. Keep being you.
It's really awesome to be able to share. And I love that people are open to the information as well, because again, like we've been talking, it can be really hard for people to accept new information that might go against some kind of older dogmatic belief that they might have. So it is important to evolve, and I love that I can share. And again, like I say with everything, like we talked about in the beginning, take pieces of everything that resonate, that make the most logical sense, right? Scientific sense, and that is being proven, and take what works the best and apply it to yourself, because you have to work with your own microbiome. So it's not to say that, I know somebody in here was asking if I eat raw broccoli and raw cabbage and raw whatever. I do, because the raw version of it is feeding my microbiome. But again, if somebody eats raw broccoli and they get gas and bloating, they say raw broccoli isn't for humans. But that's just an extrapolation based on their own experience, right? So if they started slower with the broccoli and ate smaller amounts, they could build their microbiome to the point that they feel comfortable eating the broccoli. So it's not the broccoli that's the problem. It's the microbiome, the state of the microbiome. So yeah,
Well, no, I was actually going to ask, what advice would you, if there's one thing, what is the advice you would give people, and is it to feed their microbiome?
Well, the first things first would be to slowly, number one, go vegan, obviously, right? To understand and to try to really like understand that connection of why plants are best for us, and you know, the ethical stuff and everything. But slowly build your fiber intake. So it honestly, it depends on your diet, your current diet, but slowly increase more variety and try new things. Like if you find sunchokes in your grocery store, don't eat the whole package all at once. Like start slowly, right? Great one in like your big salad or whatever, and work with your gut microbiome instead of overloading it with so much all at once. And it takes months to years. And that's something that people don't realize, that it's not going to take a week or a month to fix your microbiome, right? It's taken how many years to get to where you are? It's going to take years to get to where you want to go. But it takes that daily commitment and consistency and slow increases, slowly increase. I really love what Dr. Will Bolsowicz talks about. He compares the microbiome growth to muscle growth at the gym. So if you, when you go to the gym, say you haven't gone to the gym for a while, like you're on a low fiber diet and you haven't eaten a lot of fiber in the last little bit, when you go to the gym, it's the same thing. If you go to the gym and you start lifting 50-pound weights and you run for like 3 hours straight and you haven't done that for a while, your body's going to be in pain. You're going to be like, but no one says after they go to the gym, they're like, oh, I was in pain after going to the gym, so the gym is bad. No one says that, right? But when they eat broccoli and they get gas and bloating, they're like, broccoli's bad. But it's like, but no, it's akin to going to the gym and overdoing it. Right? So I like to say, just like Dr. Will says, and I like to give him credit for this because it was his analogy as I heard it from, when you go to the gym, you start off with the 5-pound weights and you do that for a week or 2 or 3. And then you increase to the 8-pound weights. As your muscles grow, you can lose more weight. So the same goes for your microbiome. As your microbiome grows, you can eat more of those foods, right? But you have to start with a smaller amount. Start with the 5 pounds, start with a tablespoon of broccoli if that's what you have to do, and do it more consistently, right? Like you can go to the gym once and lift 5-pound weights, but are your muscles going to grow if you go once a month for 5, right? Like you have to do it every second day, every day or whatever. Like you have to work at building your microbiome just like you work at building your muscles. It's the same kind of thing. So that's what I would recommend for people, is to start slow, just start introducing more variety slowly into their diet and work up to more raw and more variety, and take your time, because it's not a race. No one's giving out a medal when you hit 100% raw and you're perfect, right? It's your journey. So work with yourself and move at your pace. You're welcome.
Thank you. I love it. Thank you so much for today, and thanks for the
My
advice.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been so amazing. We'll have to do it again.
We will.
You too. And thanks to everyone for joining. It's been a pleasure.
That's right. Bye. Bye.